Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Stellar STOA Podcast. In today's episode, I want to talk about the optimization epidemic that I see happening in the health world, in the fitness world, in the mental health world. And I want to talk about why I think it's going on, what it's leading to, and how we're not any healthier, fitter, happier as a nation, as a species. Before we get into the episode, though, if you are listening to this on Spotify, I would love it if you subscribed, maybe send it to somebody who you think could use some of this information. If you're watching on YouTube, again, subscribe to us, like us, send us out to people that maybe you know. And then in the description, in the show notes, there is a link to the Citadel. The Citadel is my free online community of like-minded individuals who are growing better together. We're trying to take the lessons we're learning from inside the gym into everyday life. We have weekly codes and challenges to help make us better versions of ourselves. We have weekly workouts that we do as a community, and then share what we learn from it. I'm going to be doing weekly coaching calls as well. So it's free. If you want a community of like-minded individuals who are growing better together, you like this content, you like what I'm putting out, you will love this community. But with further ado, let's get into the episode. So the over-optimization epidemic going on in the health, wellness, and fitness space. What's going on here? Okay, so what I see happening is an evolution of a lot of things over the past 10, maybe 15 years. That's probably going back a little bit too far, with data, with information, with social media and authority figures. And it has created this landscape in the health, fitness, wellness world of neuroticism, if I'm being honest. We have more information than ever. We have an ability to track our individual health data more than ever. We have access to all these different philosophies and different therapies and everything. And yet, as a species, as a nation in the West here, we are not any healthier. In fact, our health continues to decline, even with the advent of like peptides. People are dying of chronic diseases more than ever. We are not happier than we've ever been. In fact, we continue every single year. A new report comes out how more people are depressed, more people are anxious, more people have lost hope of the future, etc. So what's going on? We have more information than ever. We have an ability to be tracking our data around our health more than ever. We have all of these people, including me, like right online, giving us information. Why isn't it tangibly increasing our health outcomes, our happiness outcomes? What's going on? I argue that some of this is actually creating less health and less happiness. How can that be possible? It's like I said, neuroticism. We, especially in the West, like to take things to an extreme. We like to tie our identities up in it. And I think that's what's going on here. So I'm going to talk about three kind of key areas where I have seen this in my life and then my clients, my members. Again, I've been a coach for 13 years on the coaching floor doing the thing, which we'll talk about a little bit when it comes to authority figures. And I see a lot of similar things going on, whether it was something I experienced or something a lot of my members or clients have experienced. So the three things are wearables and data trackers. You can think of a Whoop or a Ring, etc. Number two is authority figures, online authority figures. You can think of Andrew Huberman, Peter Attia, although I don't know if he counts anymore because of the whole Epstein thing, but nonetheless, Rhonda Patrick. And then the third is I will call it the longevity trend, the live forever trend. Brian Johnson is the biggest example of this. We'll talk a little bit about Brian Johnson. I don't have an issue with Brian Johnson as far as like what he's doing per se. I think the underlying lessons that are being learned, I think, are maybe unhealthy for a lot of people, but in and of itself, what Brian is doing, I don't think is necessarily a bad thing. I think people could actually take a piece out of his chapter as far as like self-experimentation, but nonetheless. So we have wearables, we have information overload, and we have addiction to longevity or fear of death, I'll say. So let's get into the first one, data trackers, Whoop. I'm going to use me as an example because I don't want to speak on anybody else's experience, but I'm going to speak about my experience wearing the Whoop. Now, I got introduced to the Whoop back when it first came around. I was in the Silicon Valley. I was coaching at a gym in the Bay Area in San Jose where this thing came about. There's a guy in our gym on like my regional team in CrossFit who had a Whoop, and he's wearing this thing. We're like, what is this? Nike kind of had a thing like this back when I was a freshman in college. It really just counted steps, but it was the first kind of like wearable type thing. Anyways, so we kind of were like, we knew what wearables were. a little bit, but Whoop obviously took that to the next level. This is back when you could buy it for like $300 and you were locked in to the app and everything like that. And it was really cool at first because up until then, when it came to like your health, as far as like habits and stuff like that, you had to kind of like write in a notebook like workouts and like your diet and stuff and like maybe how you felt. And, like nobody was really tracking their habits and how it made them qualitatively feel from a health perspective. Well, now you had data. Whoop, their interface allows you to have all these different habits, log what habits you're doing, and then over the course of months, it will, algorithmically figure out what habits are positively impacting your HRV, which ones are negatively impacting your HRV at this point too, like which ones are positively impacting your stress, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that can be really empowering and really good, especially for people who haven't lived in the health world and the fitness world. What I find is a lot of people don't have a good qualitative sense of how their body is feeling, and that feeling then in turn, being like their nervous system, their HRV, for example, and then how they should act the rest of the day. But, and there's a big but here, what I found for me after wearing it for the better part of 6 to 7 years, honestly, I got neurotic with it. Now, this might be a unique experience because I live this world. Like, I am a fitness coach, a health coach. So everything I'm already thinking about kind of is filtered through that perception. But I have found that for me, there was a moment where I was starting to be pulled out of the present moment because I was so focused on optimizing my data, optimizing my HRV. So, for example, if like I had set up to go out with a group of friends, I am now thinking all night about like every little decision I make, what I eat, what I drink, because I want my HRV. I want to be in the green tomorrow, whatever. And a lot of people will be like, that's a good thing, Sean. That's a good thing. I disagree. I think if you are getting to the point, and this is unique to the individual, a lot of people probably don't have an issue with this. Maybe it's just how I am as a person. I get neurotic about things. I believe that there is more importance being present, especially in a communal setting with friends or with my wife or my family, and being fully engaged. And if that means I'm having a drink of alcohol or something, and it's maybe going to negatively impact my HRV the next day, I actually think the payoff is better because we are communal beings. I think this goes back to happiness. I think one of the biggest issues with happiness is nobody's going out in community anymore. And, a lot of people aren't drinking anymore. That's a topic for another episode. But people are being so neurotic about wanting to live forever. They're having a hard time figuring out, like, well, how do I get in groups? Obviously, like, yes, I have a CrossFit gym. That's one way to do it. But, lots of people used to go out and do things, but now going out and doing things, well, that's going to impact my sleep. That's going to impact my HRV. And I'm not going to live forever. And if I can't live forever, what's the point? Well, it's like, why would you want to live forever living that life? That sounds awful. And it pulls you out of the present moment when you are neurotically trying to optimize HRV or be in the green or make sure that your sleep is perfect, all these kinds of things. And I think maybe this is a byproduct of the West. We become perfectionists on things. So a wearable like Whoop at first is something that's very beneficial, but I've seen myself and I've seen my members take it to the nth degree where they are neurotically tracking everything. They're making decisions in the moment that are pulling them out of the present moment so they're not able to enjoy what they're doing. That's number one. Number two, I think after a while, you learn what you need to learn from a Whoop. You know what habits are positively impacting you, which ones aren't. When you continue to wear it too long, I think you're actually offloading your own sovereignty, your own qualitative feeling of your body. And this happened to me, and this happens to everybody. If you wear a Whoop, this probably happens to you, where you wake up and you feel really good. Like qualitative, like, man, I feel good. Like I feel energetic. And then you look at your Whoop app, and what does it say? You're in the red. How do you square those two? Now, it can happen where, yes, qualitatively you feel really good, and then like your nervous system is wrecked, and then you go into the gym and you try to do something like, oh yeah, like I am wrecked. But I can't tell you how many times it's been the opposite. I feel really good. My Whoop tells me I'm in the red, and I still feel really good in the gym. Let's be honest here. The Whoop app and it's all a mathematical equation. Some dude in an office in Silicon Valley came up with an HRV evaluation, and you're basing your self-worth off of it. You're basing what you should be doing for your workout off of it. I'm not saying it's not good as like one data point, but I think too many people offload how they qualitatively feel and say, well, the data is more important. We live in a datafication age. We put way more value on data than we do our own perceived life experience, which I think is, again, another topic for another episode, but why so many of us are just not happy and not enjoying our life and just confused because we don't believe in our own qualitative experience of life. We have to have some app or some AI or algorithm tell us how we feel. And that's just not how I want to live life. I think part of being healthy is having like a really good internal sense, like having a great mind body connection. So I know when I wake up and I feel really good and I get up and there's a little spring in my step, like I know I'm good to go. Right. Or knowing like I wake up, I feel a little energetic, but like I've built the muscle of like getting in tune, being like, oh, okay, I kind of feel good, but like there is a little sluggishness to my step. There's a little, that's a skill and that's sovereignty. When you know yourself so well, you know when your body's lying to you, like that's incredible. And I think there's something to be said about you developing that skill without the need of a wearable tracker. So again, when it comes to a Whoop, I think it can be good, used sporadically, used at times to help you self-experiment, to figure out if you've never really tried to figure out what habits positively and negatively impact you. But I think at a certain point, you don't need the Whoop anymore. Like once you figure out what habits really positively impact you, keep them in. Which ones don't? Probably don't do them. They're probably the same ones for everybody. And then start getting in tune with qualitatively, like how you feel. You could even keep a journal on your bedside for something like that and be like, yesterday I did this. I felt really good today. Like, I think there's more important in like getting a better perception of how you feel and then how you'll perform the next day than offloading that to an algorithmic data set from some dude in Silicon Valley that they came up with. Your self-worth is a lot more than if you're in the green or not the next day. It's just my 2 cents. Okay, so that's number one, wearables. That goes for Aura. That goes for all of them. Two, this is a big one, is the age of information overload. I mean, this goes for everything, whether it's the news, whether it's um, whatever it is, but in the health and fitness world, we have an information overload. I mean, we have Andrew Huberman, we have Peter Attia, we have all these people, right? And I have seen this happen coaching for 13 years where now I will be coaching. I'm chewing gum. I'm sorry, guys. I'll give a prescription to somebody. And when I say prescription, like a training program, a nutrition program, whatever it is. And this member, this person will come back next day, day after, whatever. And they'll say, well, Andrew Huberman said this. Well, Rhonda Patrick said this. Well, whatever said this. And a lot of the things that these people say, like from a principle level, are all great, right? But you have to understand these people what they're doing is they're just breaking down the research for you. A lot of these people, like, they haven't spent time on a coaching floor. They haven't coached humans. They haven't spent 13 years actually coaching people or doing anything. They spent 13 years in a research facility, being in a lab. That has value for sure. But when I'm speaking, I mean, this is not to say that I have all the answers, far from it. But when I'm giving a prescription to somebody, I am doing it from 13 years of trying things, giving it to somebody, seeing what works, seeing what doesn't, seeing what works for a specific group of people, what doesn't, taking data and layering it on at an anecdotal level and going, okay, well, this is what the data set says on a generalized population. Here's why that doesn't work for these certain kinds of people, these kinds of certain people. That's really important. It's an appeal to authority, logical fallacy. Logical fallacy, this is just a critical thinking thing from college, but just because somebody has 2 million followers doesn't mean that everything they say is the gospel, right? They're giving you information, and this is the problem. They're giving you the information, and most people out there didn't go to college for kinesiology or human anatomy and biology. They're working for Apple or Amazon or one of these tech companies, and so they're listening to this. Somebody smart is telling them, so then they think they know what they're talking about. And I've done this before, and I don't do it to be an asshole, but when somebody comes to me and they go, well, so-and-so said this, I just go like, hey, can you explain to me how that works? Very quickly they can. They don't know the Krebs cycle. They don't know the electron transport chain. They don't know the stretch shortening cycle of them. Like most people don't know the human body. Now, I'm not saying you have to have this incredible knowledge about the human body to implement healthy things. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is there's the saying that the difference between knowledge and wisdom is knowing that a tomato is a fruit, but knowing that it doesn't belong in a fruit salad, right? That's what we got going on right now. We have people that are taking in all this information, and it's good information, but they have no background on how to apply it to themselves, let alone anybody else. So what do we end up having? We have what I call the nuclear bomb approach. I don't know if I should be using that analogy with the state of the world these days. Anyways, of health. And what that means is you have people that are doing all these protocols, right, that any one of these authority figures have told them to do. And incrementally, it probably does make them feel better because it's better than what they were doing before. But because they don't have a framework or a deep understanding of the human body, they don't know which one of these protocols is making them feel better. They don't understand why it only makes them feel better for a little bit and then they regress. They don't have a framework for how to layer any of this onto themselves, how to track any of it, and how to build a unique protocol, right? The difference between that and like having a coach authority figure, a good coach, right, would be somebody that helps you develop that framework. So we have these overlying principles of health and wellness and fitness, and we're going to apply them to you. And we're going to figure out within the principles which frameworks work best for you, given your unique genetic profile, your daily schedule, like whatever it is. I'll use me for an example, like Paul Saladino and that whole like carnivore keto movement helps a lot of people, but is not good for everybody. I'll use me for an example. I have a genetic profile that I'm a hyper responder to saturated fat in my diet. I eat more than 25 grams of saturated fat, and my cholesterol goes through the roof, and it is specifically the clotting cholesterol. Okay. But if I listen to an authority figure and I go, well, but some of the research says, and I do it, I'm actually more likely to die sooner than live longer because that's just unique to me. People need an n equals 1. Okay. So there is, yes, overarching principles, but then you need help figuring out what your frameworks are. And that's what a good coach would do. And a good coach would build out the frameworks, help you figure it out to the point where you build ultimate sovereignty. You know what diet works best for you, what training program, what lifestyle habits help you reduce stress, like all these types of things, to the point where you don't need the coach anymore. Maybe you want the coach for like accountability and you like that relationship, but like that's the difference between a coaching authority figure and these online influencer authority figures around health. And again, let's be honest, all this information, while good, is not leading us to be healthier, fitter, or anything like that. If that was the case in the past 8 years as they become predominant, we'd see all of our health numbers in this country, at least in America, going through the roof. And that's just not the case. Like they continue to decline. So information is not the answer, right? I think it's building individualized frameworks with coaches who have actually been doing the work on the floor, not authority figures who have only spent time in a research facility and then gather a mass following on social media. I think you should be listening to coaches who have done the damn thing, who have the experience, and build individualized frameworks so you have your own sovereignty. I mean, imagine how empowering it would be for you to know to a T all of those things, diet, training, etc. So when Brenda down the streets come to you and says like, well, did you hear what Andrew Huberman said last week? You need to be doing da. And you go, oh, thank you, Brenda. Actually, here's why that doesn't work for me based off of da, 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 da. Like that's so empowering, as opposed to what happens to most people is they hear their friend who's really into health say like they need to do this thing. And they go, well, maybe should I be doing that too? My best friend does this to me all the time. He sends me videos and he goes, is this Sean approved? And I've gotten to the point where I don't answer. I go like, I essentially bat the question back to him around like sovereignty and like, wouldn't you like to know, like, it might be true for you. It might not be true for you. We'd have to spend some time experimenting. So anyways, all that to say, that's the authority figure. So we have neurotic data tracking, and then we have information overload to the point where people are just doing all of the things, not knowing what individually works for them, wasting money on these crazy supplement stacks. Instead, you probably need like 3 or 4 precision supplements, like all this kind of stuff. Okay, number 3, and where it's continuing to head in the past couple years, is the addiction to longevity, or I guess the fear of death. Again, it's the Brian Johnson, not epidemic. And for those of you who don't know, Brian Johnson is a guy who's don't die. Okay. Let me talk about him really quick. The thing that I am actually okay with Brian Johnson, he's very clear that he's just trying to experiment on himself to see what's capable at the extreme. He says that. And I'm okay with that. My issue is that a lot of people see that and they go like, that's what I need to do too. I need to be that extreme. And I think that's a fallacy watching Brian doing what he's doing. The thing you should take away from Brian is he's experimenting on himself. You should experiment on yourself. And then from there, figure out what works for you, maybe what works but isn't worth it from a happiness perspective or a neuroticism perspective. But we live in a day and age where people feel a complete lack of control. We live in a day and age where maybe there are people who think like we can live forever, but we live in a day and age where people don't believe that there's anything in the afterlife, which again, that's a topic for a different episode. But if you are fearful of death, if you don't believe there's anything beyond just the physical state, and uh, life feels chaotic, it's a very natural thing if you're in the health and fitness space to start getting kind of neurotic about optimizing all of these things because you're scared of dying, so you don't want to die. Two, you start to control these little itty bitty things and maybe like move the needle like 1% or less than 1%, but it gives you this sense of control. You're like, ooh, okay, I'm in control. So when you see the chaos going on overseas or whatever, you go, well, but I'm controlling what I can control. But it's like neurotic control. And again, my argument with this is most people probably aren't happy doing that. I think Brian looks pretty happy doing what he's doing, which is awesome. What I found is when people get super neurotic about their health, they become healthy, unhappy people. And I always like to bring back the blue zones for this. The blue zones, if you don't know, are the areas of the world where people live on average to be 100 years old. And they're spread out all over the world, usually coastal places, but nonetheless, like we have some in like the Inuit, like super far north, but then we have some in like the Asia Pacific, and then the Mediterranean has a lot. And so I always like to connect dots. People always like to like, well, what's their diet like? All this kind of stuff. Well, it's all different. And so if it's different, you can't really take a data set from that. Like what's the commonality between all? They're all living. Is there anything that makes them in common? Because whatever makes that in common, it's probably the underlying factor, like the biggest factor of why they're all living to be 100 or older. I keep checking to see if my mic is on. And when you look at what the underlying similarity between them all are, it's stress. Okay. I mean, they all have different diets because they all live in different areas. Some of them are like only meat eaters. Some of them eat really high fat. Some like it's all wildly different. Some of them smoke. Some of them drink alcohol. Like they do these things that in the West would be like, oh my Lord, they're drinking alcohol. How can they live forever? You should take no, they are, and they're still living forever. It's stress. They all live relatively low stress lifestyles. They're really tapped into their community. They have great family lives. Another commonality, and I think this has to do with stress, is like work for them is not their identity. It's what they do to provide for their family. They're very strict on like going to work, and then once work's over, it's done. And like they're spending all of that time with family. And they live to be very old, even though they have all these different habits, right? Sleep schedules, all these kinds of stuff. Well, how does that relate to the kind of Brian Johnson phenomenon? I just find that when people are tracking their fitness and their health like that, they become so neurotic, it causes them stress. And I actually would argue for most people, you're going to end up killing yourself sooner by being so neurotic about trying to optimize your health than if you would just relax and live the 80-20 rule. Neuroticism is going to kill you faster than optimizing, getting sun in your eyes and doing all these little things. Because what ends up happening when you neurotically optimize your health and your fitness is you're scanning your environment 24/7 for how you can improve, what can be better. There's PUFAs and there's plastics and it's just like, I can't imagine living in a brain where 24/7 you're thinking about how can I optimize all of this? Where can I make even more health improvements? Like that's anxiety writing. You're living in a state of fight or flight. And we know, and I know personally, because this was me, when you are constantly in a state of fight or flight, you are tanking your hormones, your cortisol level stays completely elevated until it collapses. That messes your gut up. That messes your immune system up. Autoimmune disease is downstream of that. Cancers are downstream of that. So by you being super neurotic to the point where you're trying to live forever, unless you genuinely like love that, which I just don't think most people do, you're killing yourself because you're living in a constant state of fight or flight. Now, again, if you're that unique person that like loves constantly figuring out how to optimize everything and be neurotic, then I mean, I guess cool. I have just found most people end up becoming really unhappy, healthy people or really unhappy, fit people. I'd rather live to be like 80, maybe 90, whatever, and be like really happy living the 80-20 lifestyle of, I'm gonna eat healthy 80% of the time, but yeah, then I'm gonna like go out and enjoy a pizza or something that maybe like isn't optimal for me or whatever. Or yeah, I'm gonna have a glass of alcohol here and there because it helps me open up and I want to be communal and I want to enjoy myself and be happy. Like, sorry, I'm not sorry, but like, to me, enjoyment and happiness are trump an extra 5 or 10 years. Like, to me, I don't understand. Like, well, you're going to be 120, 140. Like, I don't, whatever, live forever. I don't want to live forever. Like, this idea that you want to live forever is, I think it's a fear of death. I have a death calendar behind me. I ain't afraid of death. A lot of people think that's weird. I just think we have a weird relationship with death. I think Brian Johnson's thing is, well, you don't want to die today. Yes, I don't want to die today because I'm young. I'm bringing a kid into the world, but I guarantee by the time I'm in like my 80s, I'll be like, okay, I'll be like, I lived a long life. It's very short-sighted. It's not long-term thinking. But yeah, that's kind of the issue I see with the neuroticism around like the live forever phenomenon or don't die phenomenon, is that you're actually probably, for most people, probably killing yourself sooner. So like, instead, just live in moderation, enjoy things, be healthy, take care of the big power laws, and you're going to be good to go. Again, for the most part, Brian agrees with that, and he just says he's taking himself to the extreme. So like, I don't want to misconstrue this and saying like that's not what he's doing. I just see people taking his message the wrong way. So again, we have an over-optimization issue with health and fitness, and it's coming up with neurotic data tracking and offloading our health, our wealth, our well-being, our happiness to what an algorithm or to what a mathematical equation by some dude in San Jose came up with. 2, we have information overload, and nobody really knows how to actually create frameworks or layer that into a holistic way of being that optimizes, yes, their health, but then also their happiness and what works for them and what doesn't. And instead of building sovereignty over their physical health and their mental health, they're giving away their sovereignty to proposed authority figures. And those authority figures can change their opinions, or the research can change on a dime. And then 3, we have a phenomenon of people being afraid to die. And that fear of death is causing people to be neurotic. And in that neuroticism, they are no longer enjoying their life, and they are offloading their happiness and, again, their sovereignty for an extra 5 or 10 years. Possibly, I would argue they're actually probably going to die sooner because they're living in a state of stress. Not good. What's the solution? That's another episode. But I think it's, again, sovereignty, understanding the things that work for you, pulling back your control from authority figures, from algorithms, from all of these things, and having frameworks for how you do that. I think that's the solution, but we'll get deeper into that in another episode. Listen, if this is you, maybe, if you're data tracking, take the whoop off for a month, see how it goes. If you're somebody that really consumes all these podcasts, nothing wrong with it, but maybe take one protocol from one of them and just do that for a week and see if it tangibly makes anything better. If so, then then you can layer something else on. Don't do all of it at once. And then if you are afraid of dying, I'm not going to get super deep with this. Read philosophy, maybe find a church or something like that. I don't know. Like, I'm just saying that if you're afraid of death, that comes from somewhere. Did somebody die in your past? Like, work through that trauma. Like, why? Ask yourself why. Why are you so neurotically obsessed with your health, your fitness, and your wellness? Like, there's a moderation level that I think is good, and then there's an obsessive level. And if you know you're that person, why? There's a reason why, and it's probably coming from a place of trauma, fear. You should dig into that before anything else. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Again, if you're listening on Spotify, make sure you subscribe. If you're watching this on YouTube, same thing. Make sure you follow me, subscribe. I'm Sean_Ranning on Instagram. Follow me there as well. In the show notes, in the description, we have that link to the Citadel. Follow that. Sign up for the community. It is 100% free. We'd love to see you in there, and I will see you guys in the next episode.